How y'all doing today? Dr. Martin Luther King. Good man, wasn't he? Bring all people together. All people together. All people. You know, we can go to Stone Mountain, Georgia. We all got to come together. All of us. We human. That's what Destination's about.
And poor Unc, he doesn't even know he's being treated like a pet. So why would we expect him to know that Martin Luther the King died because he started realizing that all the work he did benefited the immigrants of the land rather than those that we know today as Black Americans? So what if we can go to Stone Mountain again? We don't have total access to the wealth and true benefits of the mountain, so it doesn't really matter. But anyway, we've all come to the conclusion that Unc is gone. So the uproar is no longer for Unc. To be honest, the uproar wasn't just about Unc. It's about the things that we see every day. Yeah, Unc is acting like a runaway slave or a federal informant that is just happy to receive money under the table and validation that his ideas are great. But the trip part about it is his master, owner of Destination Smokehouse, aka Nicholas Yepremian's, rap sheet is longer than Charles Manson's. We'll get into that later in the video. So Unc, whatever it is you're hiding from, you still deserve your own legacy more than this loser. He's not from here. This is your birthright. Today we're going to present how we got here so we can stop it from happening again. But again, Unc is gone, so we'll take the lessons learned for ourselves. Unc did that, so hopefully we don't have to go through that.
Destiny Swap number 1. The hijacking of barbecue and the identity theft. For Black indigenous populations, smoking or barbecuing meat wasn't just a cooking style. It was a high-level preservation technology and a communal survival system. This was how you fed a tribe. This was how you ensured the community survived the winter. Back in those days, the craft was so central to the culture that it defined who you were. That is how families ended up with surnames like Pittman. Your last name was your rank, your specialty, and your contribution to the collective. But when the invaders arrived, they didn't just want the land, they wanted the skill. One of the most disgusting details of this swap is how these populations became prisoners of war on their own ancestral soil. Through the paperwork nightmare of squatters' rights and fraudulent land grants, the invaders turned the rightful owners into trespassers on their own property. The invaders also practiced one of the early forms of identity theft by actually changing their name to that of the Black indigenous family whose property they stole. One famous story from this era involves a Black indigenous woman, often identified in archives as Mary John. She barbecued with such mastery that she was able to use her culinary genius to buy her own freedom.
Think about the irony. She had to use her indigenous technology to buy back a life that was already hers from people who couldn't even feed themselves without her help. As Texas and the rest of America underwent a systematic whitewashing, the movement was co-opted. They took the Pittman craft and turned it into a yuppie hobby. Today, Austin, Texas, the land of the gentrifier and the $15 avocado toast, has successfully rebranded itself as the home of barbecue, and we are nowhere to be found. Imagine that. The people who provided the labor, the technology, and the very names associated with the pit have been erased. To this day, there is only one Black person ever inducted into the Barbecue Hall of Fame. The architects are outside the building while the squatters are inside collecting the trophies. That is the blueprint for the Destiny Swap.
Destiny Swap number 2. The legislative carjacking. The 1964 Act was the keys to the car, but the 1965 Act was the carjacking before the act could even have traction and help the community. Black people's faces, the blood, the marching, the dogs, and the water cannons were used as the moral currency to pass the Civil Rights Act of 1964. But looking back, that bill was often just a black face for hidden agendas. It was a Trojan horse. The ink wasn't even dry on the 1964 Act before the movement was co-opted. Shortly thereafter, the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965, Hart-Celler Act, was signed, and it effectively flooded the United States with a new demographic that hadn't spent a single day on the front lines. On paper, it was sold as inclusive and diverse, prioritizing skilled workers and refugees. But in reality, it created a loophole where immigrants could enter and immediately leapfrog over the very black people who had just finished fighting the war for those rights. Upon arrival, many of these groups, including Middle Eastern and certain Mediterranean populations, were funneled into a legal status of white. They didn't have to deal with the colored-only signs or the systemic weight of Jim Crow. They simply inherited the benefits of whiteness without the 400-year struggle. The Yepremian family represents the textbook definition of this swap. They rode the coattails of the civil rights movement, walking through the doors that black people had kicked off the hinges. They weren't part of the struggle, but they were the first in line for the reward. While black people were still being redlined out of housing and denied business loans, families like the Yepremians were entering the country and being handed the keys to the kingdom. Krikor Yepremian, Nick's dad, was grooming his brother, Garo, Nick's uncle, for the next great swap. Garo had zero experience with American football, and the NCAA ruled him ineligible. But in the Yepremian universe, rules are for other people. Garo somehow bypassed the entire college developmental system, the same system that grinds black athletes down, and landed the real DEI position as a kicker for the Miami Dolphins. Check this out.
Moral holding, and this kick is blocked. Yepremian has it. Throws a pass up with the ball. It's Mike Bass. He's running away for a touchdown. Mike Bass scores.
Zeno Coruscant, best placed kicker in pro football by way of Albania. Coincidentally, my roommate Felix Unger. How do you do? Kick. And this is Myrna Turner.
How do you do?
Kick.
Oscar?
Pleasure, sir.
How you
Thank
doing?
You for having us here. Yeah.
Do we have a football to see if he can still throw?
I'm the highest rated quarterback in the history of the Super Bowl.
Let's see this. Let's see this.
see this.
Let's see this.
I wish I made that last part up, but somehow truth really is stranger than fiction. Girl became a media darling for his foreigner charm, but when the pressure was on, the mediocrity showed. He is cemented in history for a Super Bowl VII blunder so embarrassing it's still ranked in the top 10 worst plays of all time. He fumbled a blocked field goal, batted the ball into the air like a volleyball, and handed the Redskins their only touchdown. While the media was laughing with Gurrow, Mr. Eugene Mercury Morris was the one doing the heavy lifting. Mercury Morris was the engine that secured the perfect season and that Super Bowl win, but the Yepremian charm was what the cameras wanted to follow. Just like Nick, Gurrow had a black man in Destiny Swap number 3, the billionaire bailout. The entire Yepremian clan wasted no time getting close to the levers of power. By the 80s, Nicholas's dad, Krikor Yepremian, had opened Neuchâtel Chocolates, a business that didn't just sell candy, it sold proximity to the elite. They secured accounts with Disney's Grand Floridian Resort and Spa and became the chocolate of choice for Trump's Atlantic City casinos and Trump Towers. They were literally feeding the Gilded Age of the 80s, while the communities they displaced were struggling to keep the lights on.
But I'm sure the people that gave them these accounts just saw themselves in this immigrant family. You know how that goes. When the bill finally came due in the mid-90s, the Yepremians didn't go down with the ship. They declared bankruptcy, effectively using our tax dollars as a massive reset button. Shortly after, the family home mysteriously burned down, a convenient catastrophe that allowed them to cash out and vanish to Florida, where Crecor rebranded as a car dealer.
Now we get to the man of the hour, Nicholas Yepremian. His rap sheet is riddled with a history of felonies and misdemeanors that tell you exactly who he is. But there is one charge that stands out like a neon sign: elderly abuse. Specifically, we're talking about assault on an individual over the age of 65. What are the odds? We are all watching this man and literally thinking he's out here abusing Unc, only to find out he literally has an elderly abuse charge on his record. This isn't a theory, it's a lifestyle. The rest of his rap sheet is just more of the same: fraud and assault. It turns out the community was right all along. Nick is beyond messed up.
Destiny swap number 4, the predator in the parking lot. The bagels and lox failure. Nick's family purchased Destination Coffee, and to be blunt, it was flatlining. It was a boutique of mediocrity. At some point, the other family members saw the writing on the wall and bailed, leaving Nick in charge of a sinking ship. Nothing about this business was viral. This man was really out here trying to survive on bagel and lox. I'm not joking. We have the pictures from the old menu. You could get a green smoothie, a cold pasta salad with capers, and a side of disappointment. There was no seasoning, no soul, and no customers. The pandemic was the final nail in the coffin. They were about to go under. Then in walks Walter Johnson, the man the world now knows as Mr. Tendernism. Unc didn't come in with a business plan or a PowerPoint. He came in with a pot of gumbo for Nick's mom. He convinced Nick to let him set up a little grill in the corner of the parking lot. The moment that charcoal hit the air, it popped. The community responded to the frequency they'd been missing, and it was all Unc. By 2021, Walter convinced Nick to add oxtails to the menu. Now, remember the lineage we talked about. Nick didn't know an oxtail from a hole in his you-know-what. He had no business near a pit. But that addition took the business over the top so fast that they suddenly needed a new location. Nick didn't build a smokehouse. He was a failing juice bar owner who stumbled upon a gold mine and decided to fence it in.
Unc is playing the role of executive chef, business strategist, chief marketing officer, and chief talent officer. If Nick is unable to pay him $1 million annually plus bonuses, which is the minimum value of these roles, then Unc should get paid in equity, full stop. While it seemed to the public that the final act of treason from Nick was him going full-on puffy and being all in the videos, the truth of the matter is that the groundwork was laid with the opening of the Murrieta location on, of all days, Independence Day 2024. This was the completion of the destiny swap from Unc to Nick Nasty. This was the moment the exploitation went from a side hustle to a full-blown empire. This is where Unc, true to his character, made sure everyone was trained on his recipes, handing over the keys to his flavor profile like a man who believed he was building a legacy.
We have more evidence that Nick knew Unc should have equity in this project. He filmed himself and his mom taking Unc down to the clerk of court, parading him around as if he were a legitimate business partner. This is a classic predator move. It demonstrates that Nick knew Unc deserved a part of the pie. He just wanted to use the paperwork to create the illusion of fairness while the robbery was in progress. Nick even shortly thereafter created videos promoting Unc as his partner. He knew in his heart what Unc deserved.
Play around.
I gotta eat.
So,
Yeah.
you see it in the background. Walt, of course, my mom, she started all this. Walt and I did this barbecue thing together, the three of us.
Booyah!
Yay!
It's gonna happen.
January, mid-January, expect us to open. We got so much support from the city. I'm telling you, we're just as happy as can be. Thank you all, everybody that's been coming and supporting us at Destination. Walter and I are ecstatic. My mom, couldn't do it without her. You know, some people like to say, you know what? You need a little bit of help in life. Everybody does. Thank you, Mom. Thank you, Walter.
No doubt about it, brother.
Couldn't done it without either one of you. I love it.
We've confirmed that Unc has no ownership in Destination Smokehouse, nor does he own Diamond Smokehouse Enterprises. Ironically enough, the diamond is inspired by the tender oxtails that Unc introduced to Nick. You all may already know that Nick also trademarked Unc's own slogan, Tendernism. There is also a lawyer who filed the trademark. He says that it is with the intention of handing over the trademark application. I won't vouch for that until it is signed over, but I will say it is hard to track down Unc, and even once he is tracked down, he may not want to assume ownership. But on second thought, I guess you can find him at the smokehouse if you really want to try to hand over the application. You may get blocked by security, but that would be your best bet to show good faith. Oh, and film it like Keith Lee did.
Speaking of Keith Lee, we have him to thank for exposing all of this. Keith Lee walked in and left a $4,000 tip, money intended for the soul of the business. But that money ultimately didn't go to Unc.
Update. We could not get to Unc. Security said it was over with for the day. They said that he was filming something. I believe he was filming a podcast. We had $5,000 in cash, or $4,000 in cash that we was going to give him a hand. They didn't take it, so we're not only going to take this money and feed some people, but we just going to do what we feel like we're supposed to do in the community.
Now that the smoke is cleared from the smokehouse, we aren't just resuming the narrative, we're reclaiming it. When two paths cross, it isn't always a coincidence. Sometimes it's a collision course set by forces we didn't see coming. The destiny swap between Destination Smokehouse and Mr. Tendernism wasn't just a story. We were watching a territory being occupied. Realizing you've been invaded is the hardest pill to swallow. It means acknowledging that while we were building, someone else was infiltrating. But there is power in that realization. The moment you see the invasion is the exact moment the occupation begins to fail. You can't fight a ghost, but you can definitely fight what's standing right in front of you. The invasion is over. The real story starts now.